Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama Hare Rama 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 Hare 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 Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare 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 Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare 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 Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare 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 Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare 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 Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare 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 Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Rama, Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Ram, Ram Ram, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Ram, Ram Ram, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Ram, Ram Ram, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Ram, Ram Ram, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna Hare 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 Rama Hare Rama Rama Hare 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 Krishna 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 Hare 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 Ram 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 Hare 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 Krishna 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 Hare 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 Ram 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 Hare 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 Krishna 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 Hare 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 Ram 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 Hare Hare Hari Bol Hari Bol Hari Bol Hari Bol Gaura Hari Bol Hari Bol Hari Bol Hari Bol Nitai Gauranga Nitai Gauranga Jaya Sachinandan Jaya Sachinandan Jaya Sachinandan Jaya Sachinandan Krishna Balaram Jaya Krishna Balaram Krishna Balaram Jaya Krishna Balaram Lalita Vishakha Jaya Radhe Shyam Lalita Vishakha Jaya Radhe Shyam Jaya Prabhupada 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 Jaya Prabhupada Jaya Prabhupada 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 Jai Jai Gurudev 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 Jai Jai Gurudev 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 Gaur Premanande Hari Hari Bol Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari राधा माधव कुंज बिहारी गोपीजन वल्लभ गिरिवरधारी गोपीजन वल्लभ गिरिवरधारी राधा माधव कुंज बिहारी राधा माधव कुंज बिहारी यशोदानंदन ब्रज जनरंजना 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 यमुना तीर वनाचारी यमुना तीर वनाचारी यमुना तीर वनाचारी यमुना तीर वनाचारी जय जय राधा माधव कुंज बिहारी जय राधा माधव कुंज बिहारी जय जय राधा माधव कुंज बिहारी राधा माधव कुंज बिहारी जय जय राधा माधव कुंज बिहारी जय राधा माधव कुंज बिहारी जय गोपी जन वल्लभ गिरिवरधारी गोपीजनवल्लभ गिरिवरधारी यशोदानन्दन व्रज जनरञ्जन यशोदानन्दन व्रज जनरञ्जन यशोदानन्दन व्रज जनरञ्जन यशोदानन्दन व्रज जनरञ्जन यमुनातीरवनचारी यमुनातीरवनचारी जय जय राधा माधव कुंज बिहारी जय राधा माधव कुंज बिहारी जय जय राधा माधव कुंज बिहारी गौर प्रेमानंदे हरि हरि बोल। जय ओम विष्णुपद परमहंस हरिजगाचार्य स्तोत्र श्री श्रीमद शिल भाई चरणारिंद भक्ति वेदांत साईं महाराज शिल प्रभुपाद की जय। अनंत कोटि वैष्णव वृंद की जय। नाम आचार्य शिल ठाकुर हरिदास की जय। प्रेम से कहो श्री कृष्ण चैतन्य प्रभु नित्यानंद श्री अद्वैत गदाधर शिवासादि गौड़ भक्त वृंद की जय। श्री श्री राधा कृष्ण गोप गोपीनाथ श्याम कुंद राधा कुंद गिरि गोवर्धन की जय। वृंदावन धाम की जय। नवद्वीप मायापुर धाम की जय। गंगा देवी की जय। यमुना माई की जय। भक्ति देवी की जय। तुलसी रानी की जय। समवेत भक्त वृंद की जय। श्री हरि नाम संकीर्तन की जय। ग्रंथराज श्रीमद् भागवतम की जय। इस्कॉन पीवीथी संस्थापक आचार्य श्री प्रभुपाद की जय। गौ प्रेमानंदे। All glories to the assembled devotees. All glories to the assembled devotees. All glories to the assembled devotees. All glories to Sri Sri Guru and Gauranga. Jai Shri Prabhupada. Hare Krishna. Nice to be back here in Dublin, California, and nice to see all of you again. Thank you for coming. Thank you for inviting me. And we'll try to speak something about Krishna consciousness after invoking auspiciousnus through Mangalacharana. Om Ajnanatimirandhasya Jnananjana Shalakaya Chakshurunmilitam Yena Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha. Shri Chaitanya Manobhishtam Sthapitam Yena Bhutale Swayam Rupa Kadamahyam Dadati Swapadantikam Vandeham Shri Guroho Shri Utapara Shri Gurun Vaishnavamscha Shri Rupam Sagrajatam Sahagana Raghunathan Vitam Tam Sajivam Sadvaitam Savadhutam Parijana Sahitam Krishna Chaitanya Devam Shri Radha Krishna Padan Sahagana Lalita Shri Vishakhan Vitamscha He Krishna Karuna Sindho Dinabandho Jagatpate Gopesha Gopika Kanta Radha Kanta Namostute Tapta Kanchana Gaurangi Radhe Vrindavaneshwari Vrishabhanusute Devi Pranamami Hare Priye Vancha kalpatarubhyascha kripa sindhubhya eva cha patitanam pavanebhyo vaishnavebhyo namo namaha. Jaya Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhara Shrivasadi Gaur Bhakta Vrinda. Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare. Madgavirapi Gopala Swikuryat Kripaya Yadi Tadaivasam Payaha Pitva Hrishyayustat Priyajanaha. In his 10th canto commentary on Srimad Bhagavatam, Srila Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur says, he prays to the Lord, my dear Lord Gopal, only if you accept my words as your cows will they be able to supply sweet milk to give pleasure to all of your pure devotees. So I'm praying in that way also. Does anyone have any particular topic or any questions that you wanted to discuss tonight? Okay. Very good question. It's the yes. After? Okay. Let's deal with an Artanavritti first. I think we should deal with an Artanavritti first. Theoretical knowledge is fine. Right. Okay. Yeah. We'll mention it. Anything else? Yes. Forgiveness. Maybe I shouldn't have asked. We're getting all over the universe here. Yeah, another one. Yeah, let go and let God, right? Yes. I'm okay here. If you're okay, I'm okay. And someone else also asked, can you say something about Radhamar traveling Sankirtan party? And Tamal Krishna Goswami in particular. So I'm going to have to figure out how to connect all these different threads. Let's start with the basics. First things first. What is the first thing we have to realize? I'm not this material, but how do we do that? It's kind of related to, well, all things are related to. I mean, there's one formula that solves all the problems and answers all the questions that we have raised tonight, and that is Trinadapi Sunichena Turodava Sahishnana Amanina Manadena Kirtaniya Sadaharihi. Because first thing that we always have to recognize once we're concentrating, the first thing we have to recognize is that we need to learn something because we don't already know everything. We hear from the 11th canto that generally when someone is in the lowest consciousness, kanishta adhikar for bhakti, that person considers himself the most advanced, looks down on everyone else, and basically can't find someone qualified to teach him, just like Duryodhana. Remember Duryodhana? Krishna asked him, find somebody that you can respect and just surrender to him, and he couldn't find anybody. This is our problem. So the first thing we have to recognize is that if I'm not this body, this is the theory, then how do I apply that? Well, the way that we apply it in Bhakti Yoga is we surrender into a spiritual master like Arjuna did. What did Arjuna say? Yeah, this is just, it's way too fascinating. So I'll wait. Okay. All right, so Arjun, well, that's one thing he said, that he surrendered. But how did he surrender? When he said, I'm your disciple and a soul surrendered unto you, what was he accepting, in fact? Yes. Supremacy of Krishna, what else? Sarvam etad ritam manye yadmam vadasi Keshavaha. Whatever you're telling me, Krishna, I accept that as absolute truth. Are we ready to do that? Really? No, we're not, actually. We really aren't, most of us. So yeah, that's the first thing. We have to recognize that I'm in need of knowledge. Now Krishna helps us with that. How does Krishna help us with that? He sends Maya. She's got a trident. She's riding on a tiger, and she keeps piercing us with what? Adhyatmika klesh. We've got enough of those. If that was all there was, it would be enough, isn't it? Especially in North America. Somebody published a book many years ago. What was it called? Opiate Nation or something? Prozac Nation. Everybody is so mentally freaked out. This, mental disorders and mental disturbances. This is like the primary thing, primary misery that we undergo. And modern life being so sinful and materialistic and passionate and ignorant doesn't help that at all. But that's what we have to deal with. So that's one thing, but then we've got also the adhibautic kleshas from our friends and other bodies, be it in the form of a tiny, tiny little virus, as we found out in the last 5 years, or, people at our workspace that are problematic, or maybe our own family members, or maybe whatever. Animals, right? Snakes. I don't know how I got typhoid about 6 months ago, but I did, and I'm super careful. But, that put me out for several months, and even now it's hard for me to get up and down because it's so painful. A little tiny thing. This is called adhibautic klesh. And then what else do we get? Here in California, we get a good share of them. The third kind, what is that? Adhidaivik klesh. What are some examples of adhidaivik klesha? Earthquakes, right. They had one in Taiwan the other day, right? What else? Wildfires. We were discussing this. Nobody's offering any yajnas anymore, so Agni Dev just has to take what he needs. It's this is his share. So he has his quota, and if you're not going to give it to him, he'll just take it. And he does that not only in California anymore, whole West Coast, all the way up to Canada, British Columbia. Everything burning like anything. And what can you do? Therefore, this example is given by Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur. You are helpless. And there's no greater way to realize that you're helpless but to be in the middle of a wildfire, surrounded, and you can do nothing. Half the fire departments in the western half of the United States, they come here every summer just to deal with these wildfires, and they still can't do it. They still can't control them. Ultimately, it's God who puts these things out. What else? What other kind of adhibautic or adhidaivik klesh do we have here in California in particular? Drought, yeah, that's another one. And we don't help it anymore by farming badam, right? They used to have citrus. They used to have grapes. Now, it's more profitable for badam, but it sucks the water out of the water table. And anyway, it's maybe no harm because a toxicologist in Texas told me every single aquifer in the United States is contaminated with arsenic, mercury, cadmium, industrial runoff, agricultural effluent, all these things. So, what are you going to do? And there's another one that nobody's mentioned yet, but I always think, we're kind of close to that. Yeah, we don't get floods so much here, but how about mudslides? If you live in Malibu, that's the problem. So yeah, California seems to have its share. And still we don't get it because we're not humble. We're not ready to listen. So how do we realize we're not our body? In Bhakti Yoga, let's all turn off our phones, please. Mine is off and locked away, so... Yeah, anybody got a phone on, please turn it off because it is a disturbance. You know what Amokha Lila calls these things? Amokha Lila. What does he call them? Kali Yuga Apsaras. Everybody gets infatuated. Worse than Mohini Murti, it would seem. The phone is just so, yeah. All right. So anyway, we've been talking about the Muslims. Where was I? Mudslides. Yes. So to realize that we're not this material body, in Bhakti Yoga, we put ourselves through voluntary austerity. I heard a lecture the other day from Srila Prabhupada. What did he say about austerity, Prabhupada? He said, our chief austerity is to become humble. That is our chief austerity. It's the most difficult thing. It is easier to surround yourself by 5 fires in the summer, let's say in Hyderabad, because Hyderabad gets so hot in the summer that, they make dosa on the street. So, that's okay. Or you can go to the Himalayas in dead of January and just surround yourself in the snow and, try to do, that's fine, but that's easier than giving up this false ego. What does Shankaracharya say? He says, day comes, night comes, dawn breaks, dusk comes, time plays, all of us are eaten by time, and still we don't give up our bundle of hopes. Tadapi na munchati asha vayuhu. Asha vayu, it's like more dear than life. This dogged determination to compete with the Supreme Personality of Godhead by making ourselves the center of all attention and by trying to exploit His resources and evade His authorities. This is what we do. Srila Prabhupada spoke about this brilliantly in one conversation. He said, it's just like, in this world, everybody is after Sita, but nobody wants Ram. How you can have Sita without Ram, it's not possible. Even people are so covered over, we ourselves have gone to temples, say of any temple, and we pray to the Lord, please bless me with Lakshmi Devi. I want to enjoy your wife. Kindly give me her blessings. It's an outrageous offense. Our position is completely puffed up and unsubmissive and foolish and all the things that are mentioned in the first canto of the Bhagavatam. What verse am I thinking of? You all know. Prain alpayusha sabhya. Yes. So I don't need to dilate on that. And there are other lists in other places, but it's enough to be slow and, just, unlucky and always agitated. And this is us. So to realize that we are not our body, it requires austerity. Human life is meant for that austerity. Tapo divyam. Prabhupada said this. What is that tapo divyam? It is the cultivation of humility. And I don't know, here maybe is good. Here we have book distribution is very prominent. When I first joined mid-70s, we were going on Sankirtana every day, and nobody would get second initiation. No one would get second initiation unless they'd proven that they could perform austerities. And how do you do that? How do you prove that you can handle austerities? What's the way that we do this? We go out on Sankirtana. Because you have to go to someone and you have to ask that person for the thing that he's been praying for, the wife of Lord Vishnu. Please give her back. Very tough job. Very tough job. And you get spat on and I know from experience, I have to tell something about my life in order to put this in context. I grew up in Los Angeles about, maybe 6-7 blocks away from the Los Angeles Temple. So I don't remember a time that we didn't know about devotees or that we were not in contact in some way with. We had Prabhupada's books, even though we were too young to read them. We just used to look at the pictures. That's what we liked. And anyway, I was a little bit pious, and I always wanted to be a priest. So I just happened to join the wrong religion, in my mother's view. But Yeah, somehow when I got older and I already had Srila Prabhupada's books, so I was reading all kinds of books. I read many different editions of Bhagavad Gita that you can get in English. You can get, Eknath Ishwaran's Bhagavad Gita, and you can get Gita Press Bhagavad Gita in English, and you can get, who else is it? You all know, there's so many of them. A dozen or so I read. And I didn't understand any of them. Why? Because the publishers also didn't understand them. Kyonki evam parampara praptam imam rajarshayo viduhu. Krishna says that you have to accept this thing in disciplic succession. That means you have to be humble. I don't know this. Let me hear from those who do know this. So when I read Srila Prabhupada's Bhagavad Gita, I was instantly convinced because I already wanted to do this. I was just looking for the right path, and I could see that Christianity was shallow theologically and that too many members were hypocrites. That's why we have to be pure. Because if people look at us and see the same kind of hypocrisy that I saw in the Roman Catholic Church, then they're going to vote with their feet, aren't they? They're going to go to see Isha, or they're going to go see, whatever, this one and that one. So many of them are out there ready, open arms. Yes, come this way. So many gurus can relieve you of your money, but not your miseries, Purana says. So, anyways, so somehow I became a devotee, but I was only 14. You can't join ISKCON when you're 14. Certainly not now. It was sometimes possible then because it was a different social environment. Now it's impossible, absolutely. Anyway, so I kept trying to join and they kept saying, no, you can't. And so I had to go home again. They used to tell me about Raghunath Das Goswami. Same problem. I went to a private school. So I had some independence, but because I was away from home. So I was already chanting. I'd become a vegetarian. I was already practicing yoga. I was studying Prabhupada's Bhagavad Gita. And I was very happy to just give my life to Krishna like that. But it was not allowed. Anyway, finally the pain became too intense. I just couldn't stand it anymore. And so I, of my own volition, totally independent, I somehow figured out how to take a bus from Los Angeles to San Diego. All I had was the address for the temple in the Back to Godhead magazine. I got out of the bus station. I just walked in any arbitrary direction. After a few blocks, I came to 3rd Street, and I saw in the address in the BTG, 3rd Street. Okay, it was a T intersection, but no Pilayar, if you're Tamil. Every intersection in Chennai, right? They have Pilayar. Pilayar. Yeah, Pilayar. Yes. Anyway, so then I just took the turn and went down 3rd Street, and after some miles I walked, then I saw the place that resembled the picture in the BTG. So then I just knocked on the door. You know who answered the door? Gunagrahi Das Adhikari. He was a householder in those days. Now he's no more in this world. He passed away. He took sannyas later. But so he looked at me and yes, can I help you? I said, I want to join. Yes, yeah, he was very quizzical. But he was nice, and he took me into his office, and we had a chat for some time, and somehow or other, he must have seen that I was serious about it. So he let me stay. And then one day the police came to the door because somebody had parked illegally outside the temple. And so I just happened to answer the door, and the policeman asked me how old I was, and I knew that I wasn't supposed to be there. So I told him I was 18, but that was when I was 15, and I didn't even look like I was 13. So, I don't know if it was a setup or what, but he somehow really took me down to the station. They called my parents. They sent me on a plane back to home. My mother was angry, really, really angry, because by this time I'd shaved my head. I was wearing saffron cloth, and yeah, it was a problem. But somehow or other we had that long, difficult talk, and I promised I would finish school and learn how to drive and do all the things that American teenagers have to do. I tried, but there were two wings of gopis. I mean, 2 wings of devotees in the temple. There was a left wing and the right wing. The right wing were the authorities. The left wing were the illicit ones. So the left wing ones were saying, no, you should just join some bus, Radha Damodar bus, And, you just travel around. Nobody will ever find you. You shaved your head. They can't recognize who you are. All these things. So to my adventurous 15-year-old mind, bilkul immature tha. So I thought, this is, that prevailed actually. So that's what we did. Somehow or other, I ended up in New York. New York City, this is in the middle of the deprogramming era. Does anybody know about this? Deprogrammers. Mostly wealthy parents. When their kids joined the Hare Krishna movement, they expected that they were going to all get medical or legal careers, but instead they joined some Far Eastern ashram. Nobody knew anything about Hinduism in those days. Even doctors used to tell you, you have to eat meat, otherwise you won't get proper nutrition. Even doctors said this in the 1970s. So, people were thoroughly ignorant. Anyway, so yeah, that's what they used to do. They used to come and they would somehow or other, they would find their kids and then just abduct them like that, right off the street, and try to brainwash them into coming home by any means they could. Totally unprofessional, totally, nowadays it would probably again be illegal. But anyway, so in that environment, the temple authorities thought this kid is too hot. We have to send him some, Guptastan. So they sent me to Gita Nagari farm. Now it's called Gita Nagari. Prabhupada named this place Gita Nagari in 1977, but when I went, it was called Nuvarshana. So I was there picking potatoes for a month until Tamal Krishna Goswami, Guru Kripa Swami, and Drishtinanda Swami. They all came one day in late, maybe November sometime. They were just, by that time every year, they were already thinking about the next marathon. And so, anybody who was, within their sight, that the available brahmachari, they would just try to get him as soon as they could, and I was one of them. So they took me on their bus. We went to Memphis, Tennessee, where they had every year they had this conference at the beginning of the marathon to figure out who goes where, what's our strategy for distributing books. Nationwide. We weren't supposed to be nationwide, but we were. That was Radha Damodar. Lawless love of the gopis, you might call it. So anyway, so then there were 6 Greyhound buses. We had 6 buses at the height of the Radha Damodar party. And each bus had a fleet of, say, 4 or 5 vans that were satellites off of that bus. So all these vehicles, they all converged in front of one house in a rundown part of Memphis, Tennessee, an old house that had been rented for that purpose only. So, there were at least 150, maybe 200 brahmacharis in that house or in the buses around that house. And fortunately, it was a semi-industrial area, so the neighbors weren't too upset. But every morning after Mangalarati, the police would be pounding on the door, ready. Nowadays, they would just push the door in, but in those days, they had some manners still. And, we couldn't hear a thing because the kirtan was just thundering with 100 devotees, more than 200 young 20-year-old brahmacharis. Nobody was older than 25, I think. And so nobody could hear anything until after Mangalarti, and then they heard, bam, 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 bam. They answered the door, and the police are there. They look, the people are calling the police. You're making a lot of noise. You got to keep it down. We don't know who you are or what you're doing, but just don't make noise, please. So this happened several times. Somehow or other, some pious couple, they came. The man's name was Lakshmi Narasingha. Must have been from Andhra Pradesh somewhere. So they came also, and one time the kirtan was so ecstatic that when the devotees would all jump and dance, the floorboards would just it would also go up and down. And at one point that actually one devotee broke through the floorboards, went onto the first floor. Fortunately, he wasn't seriously injured, but it actually happened like that. That's how wild it was on Radha Damodar. And, by the time we left that building also, I don't know how they dealt with the landlord about that, but there were 6-inch ruts in the muddy driveway that left by these Greyhound buses. And, there were like little orange flags in every window, blowing in the breeze, and, long, thin pieces of cloth, you understand. So, this was the mess that we left in our wake everywhere the Radha Damodar party went. Anyway, so then we went to New Orleans, I think. New Orleans. Anyone been to New Orleans, Louisiana? It's originally a French colony in the United States, in the North America, that is. And then later on, the United States bought it. Louisiana purchased. But still to this day, it's kind of like it's a center for occult things. What we call jadoo in India, or voodoo. They, Haitians and others, they're doing this. So we had this Motel 6 that somehow or other, for some reason, we were staying in the cheapest motel that we could find, because motels were Maya. And comfort of any sort was Maya. So generally, we didn't even stay in motels. We stayed in our buses themselves or in the vans. But for some reason, this time we were in the Motel 6. And generally, the process was that we would get up early, and at the same time, 4:30 in the morning, and have Mangalarti. Then after Mangalarti, all the devotees would sit in the room and chant japa. But the room was small, and this big bed was in the way. So they would put the bed against the wall flat, and they would take the sheets off the bed and put those sheets on the floor, as we do in India. And then they would all be sitting there, and they would put a Harinam chadar over the mirror, because mirrors were also Maya. You might get vain or something. And somebody had a hot plate, a single hot plate, which they were cooking a huge pot of khichdi for 20 brahmacharis. And, you're not supposed to do that. And so what happened is that it shorted out the circuit for that entire section of the building. And so the maids, they coming up and down from door to door asking, somebody's cooking in there, what's going on? So finally they came to our door, and they had one of those locks with a little chain that you slide it and it goes there. So they pushed open the door, and all they could see was through this little thin, opening. And what they saw was there was no lights on. Instead, there was a candle burning. Somebody had this big pot in the corner. Everybody else was sitting on the floor, dressed in funny robes with bald heads, and they're all going like this. And this lady looked at the black lady. She looks in and said, "Oh my God, they're doing voodoo in there." She just ran off terrified. This kind of thing happened on Radha Damodar. Sometimes we would stay in campgrounds of America. Anybody know what that is? KOA? I don't know if they have those still, but there was a chain that, that people would go camping in these places. Usually people with vans. So this Radha Damodar bus would pull in, and they never liked us, because the big Greyhound bus is not supposed to go in these places. But we did that. And so then one morning they were doing Mangalarti, as we always did, in the bus. And somebody left the curtains maybe not shut. So another camper saw that there's two little children tied up against the wall, and they're torturing them with fire. That's what they thought. So they contacted the manager of the place. He called the police, and they all came over to investigate. What is the scene of the crime here? Because the people were awakened at 4 a.m. They'd never seen such a thing. There was a bouncing bus, and all this ching 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 ching, and all these people like shouting in there. So they couldn't figure out what on earth is this. People had no idea of Krishna consciousness in those days. They thought we were maybe some cult. They thought we were maybe sacrificing humans, or they didn't know what we were doing. I had no idea. So that happened. Somehow we worked that out. But another time, these car washes, I don't know if they still have them, but you can pull your car into the car wash. It's like just a covered thing. You put a coin in the thing, and there's a hose you can hose off your own car. You can clean it like this. So devotees, sometimes, if we would stay in national parks and just bathe in the river in warm weather, or if that wasn't possible, if we were in a city, we would come to this place at 3 a.m. and take our shower. Because you have to save Krishna's money and not waste it on bodily comforts like hotels, right? So that's what we would do. So One morning around 3 in the morning, 3:30 in the morning, there was a half a dozen brahmacharis, and they stripped down to nothing but their copings. So they're all, huddled in a group there. One brahmachari puts a coin in, he turns on the hose, and he starts hosing off all the other brahmacharis. And they're all soaping and this and that, and they're all chanting, Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna. So suddenly somebody found out that somebody noticed that there was a police car parked right there in the edge of the parking lot, and these two cops were sitting there in the car with open jaws, just astonished, completely short-circuited. They couldn't even begin to imagine what is going on here. They see a half a dozen young guys, all bald-headed, every one of them wearing only strings around their, everywhere, and just hosing each other off at 3 in the morning. So what these cops did, they did nothing at all. They just turned on the ignition and very slowly drove away. I don't know what they were figuring, but it was... This is the kind of thing was a daily occurrence on Radha Damodar traveling Sankirtan party. Myself, when I was going on Sankirtan, you have to remember, technically speaking at this time, from a legal perspective, I was a teenage runaway. That's how they saw it in terms of the law. But I think even my mother by that time, because I'd tried several times before, she knew exactly where I was going. So she knew what I was doing. But in the eyes of any other person, they would see it like this. So sometimes we used to get arrested when we performed Sankirtan. They would find any reason to just get rid of us because people were complaining. So sometimes they would come and they would arrest us because we were, quote unquote, soliciting without a license. Does anybody get thrown in jail for soliciting without a license? But that's what they did sometime. One time we were arrested like this. We even spent the night in jail. Myself. And on one such occasion, the devotees, they were very bold. They decided, no, we're not going to take this. We're going to challenge these charges in court. And so, I was part of that group, so I had to also go to court. And in fact, I even testified in court. But at no point did anyone ever ask me how old I was. At no point did anyone ever ask me for any form of ID. Nothing. And as I mentioned already, I was already looking too young to be there. But somehow or other, it's like all the guards fell asleep and the doors opened up and just Krishna's will prevailed. So we did like this. But on Sankirtana, we could, you all know this. It's a little easier now, I think, than it was then. Because now you can go to what? Patel Brothers, at least in Atlanta, it's Patel Brothers. I don't know where you go here, but... it's Indians there, and they're familiar somewhat. But in those days, it was only Westerners, and nobody knew anything. So, some people wanted to kill us. Some people wanted to seduce us. Some people wanted to rob us. All these things would happen on Sankirtana. And it was really pretty extraordinary times. What else am I thinking that... This would have been late 76, early 77. This is the very end of Radha Damodar, because I joined in 76. Radha Damodar I joined in 76. And by that time, Vishnu Jan was already gone. Tamal Krishna Goswami was technically in charge of the party, but he was in India with Srila Prabhupada. That was the last year. So really it was Drishdhana Maharaj and Tripurari Maharaj and some other senior godbrothers. Maybe if the kids have some positive engagement somewhere, then they'll not be distracting. But so yeah, we were traveling and doing Sankirtan in this way. What was I saying now before the kids came? Yes. Yeah, we've gone a long way from there, but not so far. So anyway, we were doing this kind of austerity, and eventually, Radha Damodar party split up in 77. I think it was either just before Prabhupada left or right around that time. So half of the party went to Gita Nagari, and that's when it became Gita Nagari. They actually, in the early days, they developed that party. They're the ones who brought the deities there also, Radha Damodar. And then the other half, we went into the Midwest, Kansas City, St. Louis, Indianapolis, Chicago, Dallas, Houston, maybe some other places that I don't remember. So that's where I went, and then after some time we were there. But during this time, Tamal Krishna Maharaj was in India, but he had such a system to organize the Radha Damodar traveling Sankirtan party. This you have to consider. This is before any internet. This is before even cell phones. The only thing there was landlines. And, he had his own idiosyncrasies. he would go into, they used to have phone booths where there was like a glass box, and you go inside and there's a phone there, you can make a landline call. So he would go there, but he was so conscious of not getting sick, because sickness was Maya, that he would take this cloth and he would cover the phone and he would speak like that. And he had he just commanded such respect from the entire Radha Damodar party that from that point on, everybody in the whole party would do this also. Just like he wore one of these vests, that cut off sleeve vests, and, everybody in the whole party got them because he had that kind of influence. In the whole movement, he was only called Goswami. The only one. And, just tremendous respect he had. But he also created a lot of waves because of his out-of-the-box ways and very determined ways of spreading Krishna consciousness. I used to just look at him sometime and marvel that how can such determination possibly fit within a human body? I couldn't understand. He was so intense. Very, very intense personality, but very sweet also. He could be very harsh. If you were in Maya, you would know it. But he could be very sweet at the same time. One time, this was when, I should tell this story about little Radha Damodar also. Shortly after Prabhupada left, they were taking a walk on Juhu Beach. And this was like the day after Narsingha Chaturdashi, if I'm not mistaken. And the moon was on the western horizon, setting. The sun was on the eastern horizon, rising. The ocean was there, the land was there. The sky overhead, as he put it, all the demigods were present. So he saw something shining in the sand, and he told one disciple, go see what is this. So that devotee, his name was Shyamsundar, he went to see what is this. He pulled out some sand. He saw a very small deity of Krishna, this big, silver Krishna. And the deity had been covered with sea, things for so long that he had to be washed, but it was clearly Krishna. And so they took it that this is a special thing. And so they took him back to the temple, and they bathed the deity for some 5-6 hours and chanting Brahma Samhita prayers. And, they were going to go and take prasadam, but then how can we do that? Look, this is a whole Leela is going on here. So this is in Juhu, Mumbai, Juhu Beach. And so then he brought that deity back with him to America when he finally returned in September, Radhashtami in 1978. And he called the deity Gopinath, but then Satsvarup Maharaj came to visit him, and Satsvarup said, you know what, you're famous for the Radha Damodar party, so you should call these deities Radha Damodar. Because when the Maharani of Udaipur found out that this deity had appeared to Tamal Krishna Goswami, she became very enthusiastic. The deity was solid silver, or some alloy of silver. They're very common, but at least in Mumbai side. But the deity was Damodar with silver. So this Maharani decided to donate a golden Srimati Radharani, real gold, and so she did that. And he installed her in Radhashtami in 1978 in St. Louis. At that time, I had the good fortune of becoming their first pujari. So, and then he had a mobile home he was traveling on with these small deities. So it was like a second Radha Damodar traveling Sankirtan on a small scale. But so anyway, he was like this, and he was very intense, and he was driving everyone, pushing everyone to spread Krishna consciousness. We had a head office in New York for Radha Damodar party. And every evening he would personally call from India. And in those days, to make a call from India to the United States was very difficult. But somehow or other he would do it. And then, from New York, he would find out the scores, and then he would orchestrate. He would tell everybody what to do. He had such a brain that he just would, within his mind, he was organizing hundreds of men. And so then the bus leaders would give commands to their different van leaders, and the van leaders would give commands to their brahmacharis, and they would all go out, and the whole thing was orchestrated. So many millions of books were distributed in those days, and many, many devotees joined. Tamal Krishna Goswami was irresistible and irrepressible and, indomitable. One journalist in Dallas Morning News, I think, described him once as imperious. He was so strong. But anybody got anywhere close to Tamal Krishna Goswami in a one-on-one situation, if Tamal Krishna Goswami saw that that person had adhikar for Krishna consciousness, he would focus all of his attention on that person. And Tamal Krishna Goswami, any of his attention was usually too intense for anyone else. But when he focused his attention, it was just irresistible. Everybody would crumble. So he would just make people devotees like that. What's an example? We used to go to college campuses and sit down and do kirtan on the college campuses. And the college campuses, although it was public property, they didn't like it. So they were always trying to get rid of us by this or that means. So they said, yes, this is public property and you can stay here, but you can only preach to your own members. You can't preach to the general public. So Tamal Krishna Goswami was so expert, he sent a brahmachari across the street to the student store to buy a notepad and a pen. And he came back and said, I am a member of the Hare Krishna movement and I'm taking part in this festival voluntarily. And then he would number from 1 all the way to the bottom of the page. And he would just ask people, please sign our guest register. Anybody would come up. And so they would do that. And then if anyone harassed me, no, these are our people. There's no problem. That's the kind of transcendental brain he had. That's what endeared him to Srila Prabhupada. He was always doing things like that. And he was, within 2 or 3 minutes, anybody got in his company, he could understand everything about them. You know this verse, Atma upam yena sarvatra? Anyone? 632. Atma upam yena sarvatra samam pashyati yorjana sukham va yadi va dukham sa yogi paramo mata. Krishna says, my opinion is that the best yogi is the one who can empathize with all other living beings. The Tamal Krishna Goswami had that ability. He could understand everything. Anybody he talked to, he knows what is their socioeconomic background, what is their level of faith, how strong are their material desires, how much is their, what kind of anarthas they have specifically. He knew these things. He was so sharp, just like Prabhupada could understand these things. Many, many, many devotees can tell you their own stories about Prabhupada that, how he seemed to be able to read everyone's mind. It's empathy. And Krishna says the best devotee is the person who has that, because nobody can be a successful preacher without that empathy. So he had it. And it's on the basis of that empathy that he was just able to get into anybody's heart just like that. And he would make the conclusion inescapable that the only reason I'm not surrendering to these people is because I'm 100% rascal. That's how he would get people to realize that they're not their bodies. And then people would join. And many of those people are still in the movement today. They're still around, Radha Damodar, so many of them. I'm one of them. So anyway, this was the glorious, my own experience with this Radha Damodar traveling Sankirtan party and Tamal Krishna Maharaj. After that, the party disbanded and everybody went their own ways, and Tamal Krishna Maharaj went back to India again. And, the rest is history in those days when Prabhupada left. But that was the Radha Damodar traveling Sankirtan party. What were some of the other questions now? I can't remember. The small ones. The small ones are with my godbrother Sankar Shandas Adhikari. Yeah, Austin. And They take very nice care of them for many years, and because his wife is a disciple of TKG, so somehow they were in the right place at the right time, and they got that benediction, even though I was the first one, but he was the lasting one. So anyway. Convincing conviction. Yeah, it does shake you. There were people who came out of his office after addressing down from Tamal Krishna Maharaj, and they were always trembling, because he could do that to people. He could do that if he wanted to. It's stated in the Smritis that a great personality can be harder than a thunderbolt, but softer than a rose. And he was like this. Or as Hitopadesh says, a true friend is also maybe harsh a little bit on the exterior, rough exterior, but soft and sweet inside. Definitely he was like that. But most people got so scared from the exterior that they could never really take advantage of the inside. Tamal Krishna Goswami. I had one experience that illustrates this. This was, again, in St. Louis. This was just shortly after I took up the position of worshiping those Radha Damodar deities. So all day long, it's laborious work. Anybody here, raise your hand if you've been to Guru Vayur. Anybody? Guru Vayur? So you know. Guru Vayur, the one person is doing all the puja, one male shanti, right? He's doing everything from dawn to dusk. So that's what it was like for me. Because, I had to do everything. From waking them before Mangalarti, giving them the Balya Bhog, giving them Mangalarti, then bathing, then dressing, then Shringar Arati, then the Dhub Deepa, everything, all of these things, Raj Bhoga, Vaikalik Bhoga, Aratis, and then finally putting them to rest at night. So it was very, very taxing, very difficult. Even in my prime, I was only 18 at that time, 19. Very young man and just full of strength, but still it was very, very tough. And to make that more austere, to bring me out of the bodily consciousness, false ego, he was constantly criticizing every move I made. Because that's what a guru should do. Spare the rod, spoil the child, as it said. So, everything I did, nothing could possibly be right. And, just all day long, just harassing me and finally, at the end of the day, after I put the deities to rest, and then I just went exhausted to take rest, as soon as I lie down, Goswami wants to see you. I thought, oh my God. So I went in and just, I paid my obeisances, and I yes. He said, Mukunda, I just wanted to let you know that your service is very much appreciated. And I have saved this sandesh that you offered to Radha Damodar. I just want you to take this sandesh with the benediction that in this lifetime you will go back to Godhead. Yeah, I mean, what to say when you get a benediction like that. That's how loving he could be. He gave me also... Actually, this is very recent, like around 1995 or something. He made the decision to go back to college and to enter the field of religious studies. And I had just finished college by then. So he wanted me around because he was also taking Sanskrit classes. So he wanted me to help him with that. So I was doing that. And... yeah, so that lasted for some months, and at the end of that period, he just, out of the blue, he called me into his office and said, I want to take you with me to, I'm going to India now, but we're going through France and Israel and other places, and I would like you to come with me. So just free. So, that was a kind of thing. He also, one time he gave me one of these book stands, but it wasn't an ordinary book stand. This is the book stand that Prabhupada used when Prabhupada was in Dallas. And this was in 1998 or 99. And those things were not very easy to come by 20 years after the fact. after Prabhupada left. That was a very valuable thing that he gave me. But he could be like this. And I saw that he was always thinking of others' welfare, even at the same time that he did things in such a way that he benefited personally. This is his absorption in transcendental duality. He appreciated there was a use for being very fruitive on the spiritual level. And not many people can see that. But he was able to see that because he was so deeply steeped in transcendental duality. People sometimes misunderstood him. They took him to be like a classic type A sort of manager, type heavy, And he was that also, but they didn't see that it had this divine purpose behind him. Very, very specially empowered soul. By the time he left this world, I remember feeling that 3/4 of ISKCON has now gone away, because practically speaking, people to this day, I don't think they've really understood the tremendous influence that he had behind the scenes on the trajectory that ISKCON has taken since Prabhupada's departure. And his pioneering spirit was very, very important in spreading Krishna consciousness movement. There's one lecture which I heard in person in this same year, I think it was 97, when we were in Paris. At that time, the context is that the Paris temple was not in such a good state. This is after the previous GBC had left, big scandal. And, the devotees were completely, what is the word? They were, yeah, something like that. They were disheartened and just discouraged completely. And many of them just gave up altogether. And the deities were staying in a rented house. Nice house, but rented house, not their own house. So, the people who were stalwarts, like my godbrother Vishwampar and others, there was one Grihastha couple just, taking on that austerity on their shoulders to take care of Krishna come what may. A very great sacrifice. So anyway, they invited him, and he came, and I happened to be with him, so I was there. So they asked him to speak something, and he spoke on the topic of faith in the spiritual master. One of the things that he said, to make matters worse, as the ISKCON devotees were completely disheartened, and at the same time the Gaudiya Math devotees were coming and trying to convert all of them. So it was like double discouragement. And anyway, so he came and he spoke on this topic of faith in the spiritual master. And you can find that lecture still, and you can download it from, I already asked you. That's 2 of you guilty. Okay, sorry. Yeah, you have a license then. Grandfather clause. So where was I now? Yeah, so he spoke. You can download this lecture if you go to goswami.com. You have to look for it. It's not easy, but it's there. I think it was June 6, 1997. I'm guessing. I don't know actually, but Faith in the Words of the Spiritual Master or something like that is the title. Anyway, so he mentioned that when he first came to France, some 20 years or 15 years before that, it was a similar situation because the devotees, Prabhupada had told them to go out on Harinam Sankirtan, and they did so in good faith. And they all got arrested. And so they lost their courage, and they were all afraid to go on Sankirtan. Tamal Krishna Goswami was the kind of person who could deal with that situation, because he would just say, look, you have an order from your spiritual master. You don't own your life anymore. You've given it already. You have to represent him. He tells you what to do. You have to do this. And so he got them somehow fired up to go back out on Sankirtana, and he started a Back to Godhead magazine in French. They started doing some Sunday feast in whatever place they were staying in, and whole French yatra became enlivened again. But he was able to do this sort of thing. Whatever anybody else failed at, Tamal Krishna Goswami never failed. He always succeeded. That was his personal policy. I remember when he was in college, he had a 4.0 grade point average, and he was dissatisfied. Classic overachiever. But I mean, I should tell you the story of how he even got into the university is interesting enough because one of his godbrothers convinced him to go back to school, and he decided, okay, because he was sick of ISKCON politics, he thought, let me find a new pioneering preaching field. So that's what he decided to do. So he went into the office of the dean of the School of Religious Studies at Southern Methodist University in Dallas, Texas, Dr. Lonnie Cleaver. And he just said, I'd like to register for the next semester, even though I'm a non-traditional student. And so Lonnie Cleaver just politely told him that, well, that's nice. Thank you. That's very good. We'll keep it in mind. It's too late now to register for this semester, but next semester you can come back and we'll take care of it. So Tamal Krishna Goswami wasn't the kind to be discouraged by that kind of technicality. So he started to tell Dr. Lonnie Cleaver a little bit about his life and his history and his accomplishments. And Dr. Lonnie Cleaver, being a professor of religious studies, was completely entranced by hearing everything that he had done. And he realized that he's got a gold mine here sitting in his office. So by the time they finished that conversation, not only was Tamal Krishna Goswami enrolled in that semester, but he also received his own office within the Department of Religious Studies. And he's an undergraduate student. It doesn't happen at all. But this is the kind of thing that he could do. You're all in America, so you can appreciate if I tell you another story that Badri Narayan Maharaj told me. That he was preaching he had a preaching center in Ann Arbor, Michigan. And there was one professor from the South he was a very intelligent man, very favorable man also. He would sometimes come to the temple because he was so intelligent that he appreciated Krishna consciousness. You wouldn't think so just by looking at him. He just looks like a classic redneck. But so anyway, one time Tamal Krishna Goswami came and he was the guest lecturer. So he sat down and he gave this lecture. And this professor who was sitting there, this Texan professor, was so completely astonished. He'd never heard such a presentation from anyone that, he was just completely blown away. So he said, I don't know nothing about y'all's philosophy, but that man can talk a hungry dog out of a pork chop. So this is Tamal Krishna Goswami. He was able to do this. Yeah, so anyway, what else do we have to talk about? I don't remember some of the questions. Sorry? Yeah, we don't like to talk about it, but... Yeah, not much. Anything else? Last 20 years. With all due respect, there is no one like His Divine Grace, A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Srila Prabhupada. I'm even going to go so far to say, without mentioning any names, that the analogy is given that, well, I'll just recite one Hindi doha for you. Sura Sura Tulasi Sasi Urugana Kesava Das Aj ke Kavi Khadyotsam Firte Asapas. You understand? For those who don't speak Hindi. He's talking about poets. So he says, Sur is the sun, Tulasi Das is the moon, Keshava Das is like all the stars combined. But today's poets, they're just like little fireflies. They come and they go. We're 50 years since Srila Prabhupada came to the States. So many gurus came at the same time that Prabhupada came. Where are they now? Where are their followers now? What did they really accomplish? Not much. So that's how I see it. With all due respect, there are great souls in Vrindavan. We don't know who they are also. You know, there's a equally valid principle is Tulasi is samsara mein sabse miliya bhai, na jane kis roop mein narayana mil jaye. So, you know, we have all respect. But it's very clear who Srila Prabhupada was, and having received the clarity of, and the authority of his presentation and the sweetness of his presentation of Krishna consciousness, we don't even need to worry about other saints. Yeah. Yeah, I understand that, but I am. Because this is the distinction that we have to recognize. There is really only one person that we need to worry about. Don't waste your time with anyone else. He's already done this. Krishna consciousness has already been spread all over the world in a way that even Madhvacharya didn't do, Ramanujacharya did not do, Chaitanya Mahaprabhu himself did not do. Prabhupada did that. It's historic. It's unprecedented. It's incomparable.
There was a conference in London, and they tried to find out how Islam and Christianity and Krishna consciousness lived there in the first 50 years. They came to a conclusion that Krishna consciousness and the Srila Prabhupada did much better in the first 50 years, despite everything else that happened compared to Christianity.
Yeah, those religions came about several centuries after their founder's death. So where's the authority? Here we have in Srila Prabhupada and his legacy, hundreds of records, files of practically every conversation, every class, every purport, everything Prabhupada ever did and said. It's there. It's documented. It's objective. Nobody else has this. This is just to record Srila Prabhupada's teachings. But to Prabhupada's surrender, that's an invisible thing. We can only, it's like subatomic particles, right? You can only see the thing by its effect. So, phalena parichiyate. This is how we judge. If you look at the effect of what Prabhupada did, which is more than anyone else in history, Vaishnava history, then we don't even need to worry about anyone else. At least I'm not going there. Prabhupada, in fact, sometimes in Krishna Balaram temple, Srila Prabhupada would ask for somebody and they would say, oh, he's out somewhere, And Prabhupada said, well, look, I built this temple here. Everybody's here. Krishna Balaram is here. Radharani is here. Garnitai is here. Well, why do you need to go anywhere else? That's my mood, at least. Okay. Anything else? I don't know about the time. You have a question? Yeah, good. Thank you. Yeah. Let go and let God. It's the same thing. To really let go of something and to let God, take shelter, to let God, guide us, it requires this humility. This is like the answer to all questions, which is why Srila Krishnadas Kaviraj Goswami writes in Chaitanya Charitamrita, just take this verse, put it in a kavach, keep it around your neck. Because, this is really if you apply this to your life really deeply, then you will find that everything is taken care of. Everything else is automatically done. You will realize you're not your body. You will advance very quickly in spiritual life. You wanted to hear about an Archana Vritti. That's how it happens, through humility only. So important is humility that Sanatana Goswami writes in Brihad Bhagavatamritam that there is no distinction between absolute, unconditional humility and Krishna Prema. They are one and the same thing. No humility, no Krishna Prema. And those who have no Krishna Prema, they have no humility. Or some mix is there. Usually that's what it is. So what do? We begin from entry-level Krishna consciousness means, first of all, a person has to have enough punya that he recognizes that I need to learn some things. I need to shape up. There's something wrong with me. I'm suffering. That recognition has to be there in the very outset. That's called Shraddha. And that faith, we have to invest it somewhere. So where do we invest that faith? Where do we put it? in the association of devotees. I realize I need to learn something, so let me enter the society of devotees and be a little humble and learn something from them. And then what is the immediate effect of taking shelter of the devotees? What happens next? Bhajana Kriya. The devotees will engage you. Let's do kirtan. Come on, let's distribute books. Here's Krishna's pots. Let's wash them. So, this is Bhajana Kriya. And from Bhajana Kriya, kya hoga? Anartha nivritti. All the anarthas, ugly things within the heart that we hide, that we protect very carefully, they're all washed out, dissolved. And then, when you're fixed in that practice, nothing can shake you anymore, what happens? Then you get a real taste. We have a shadow taste only. We don't even know what taste we have. It's partial, it's temporary, and it's very pale compared to the real thing. The real taste doesn't even come until after an artha nivritti, after nishtha. Then we get a real ruchi. And that ruchi is so attractive, what does it become? Addiction. Positive sense of the word addiction. Somebody, John Leonard, I think it was, asked Srila Prabhupada. At this time when he asked Srila Prabhupada, he was addicted to heroin. So he asked Prabhupada, how do we know who is really a self-realized person, who's a real bona fide guru? Prabhupada said, you find somebody who is the most addicted to Krishna. So that's called asakti, attached. And from asakti, what happens? Bhava. Bhava is like the dawn. When the dawn is just around, 5:30 something, you see there's a little bit of aruna, usha they call it, in the eastern horizon. Some light, not fully light, but no longer night. This is bhava. And that bhava is the same thing as prema, but it's just beginning of it. It doesn't last that long. Then prema. So again, everything begins with humility. Humility and faith are one and the same. Humility and prema are one and the same. Advancement in Krishna consciousness is based on faith, which is to say that advancement in Krishna consciousness is based on humility. Where's the faith if you can't be humble? Means you don't believe something. You don't actually have faith. An unsubmissive person who's not humble, he doesn't actually have faith. This is the thing. Argumentative people, they cannot advance. What does Krishna say about the doubting soul? Yeah, nagharka. He doesn't. Yeah, he doesn't. There's happiness neither in this world nor in the next world. How can he be happy? And how can he be peaceful? So, yeah, yes. Oh, is it your phone? Okay. Yeah. Yeah, the class was the summary. Summary of the Radha Damodar history, summary of what, how to realize you're not your body, how to go through an artha nivritti, the whole thing is the summary. But I think if there's a key formula here, it's Trinadapi Sunichena. You always chant Hare Krishna, and the only way to do that is to be humble. And, when we say to be humble, it just sounds so simplistic, doesn't it? Because we don't know what humility is, really. We say humble, but it's like, my godbrother put it this way. You can speak theoretically about, there are many ways to die, right? Theoretically, you can speak about this. Let's say a person can be electrocuted, right? So it's one thing to talk about that while we're all comfortably seated and, the heater's off and, it's not too cold and, okay. But it's another thing if you, go wash your hands, do not dry them, and hold a knife into a socket. That's another experience, isn't it? So, yaswanu bhavam akhila shruti saram ekam. We hear from the Bhagavatam. Shukdev Goswami was on the platform that his personal experience is the same thing as the teachings of the Srimad Bhagavatam. And that has to be the case with us as well. Guru Mukha Padma Vakyo Chite Te Kodya Aikyo. There should be no difference in what we're cherishing really in our hearts and what the spiritual master has asked us to do. Just like back to New York in 76 when they had this court case, deprogramming case, the devotees, none of them was over 30 years old. They're just kids. And they're here in front of the Supreme Court of the United States. Everybody was completely intimidated. But Srila Prabhupada was thoroughly enlivened. The more threatening the challenge was, the more enlivened Srila Prabhupada became. Why? Because he had such faith. He knows this is just Krishna providing me an opportunity to reach a larger number of people and to edify them about the real nature of Krishna consciousness. So you know what he told us? He said, you put a table in the middle of the courtroom, you put all my books up on that table, and you enter this as Exhibit A. Please refer. And he said, anything these people throw at you, you just go pick up the book, corresponding volume, open up the verse, and then just read straight from the book. That's what he said. You just learn my books well enough that you can do that and speak nothing but what's in these books, and this case is finished. And they did that, or at least they tried. And the the judge in the Supreme Court of the United States just threw the case out of court. These people are a bona fide religion. You just don't like their religion. That's all there is to it. So, this is faith. But only Prabhupada had that faith. Faith is what distinguishes a Kanishta Adhikari from a Madhyama Adhikari from a Uttama Adhikari. Where are you? How's your faith? Tamal Krishna Goswami once, he asked me this. This would have been around 2001 or something. Either I had just quit the university or I was very close to it, and he was also finishing up, and he was really sick of it. But he just asked me, how's your faith? Because he was working in religious studies, and that personality, those people, they really question everything. So it's a real challenge. Anyway, so yeah, we should question our faith. That's why I think that chapter 17, the first 6 verses or so of chapter 17, is a severely overlooked section of the Bhagavad Gita that we need to really consider more deeply than we do. And part of that consideration means to study the predecessors' commentaries, because they raise some very valid points. For example, Baladev Vidyabhushan says, there are 2 kinds of faith. There's Swabhavaja Shraddha, and then there's Shastrajanya Shraddha. And, they're different things, and they have different results. Swabhavaja Shraddha means, we may have been socialized in a Hindu environment, and so we just accept things without question. And that's good. It keeps your character good, and but it's not going to necessarily take you back to Godhead until you understand why you're doing what you're doing. This is a common thing we hear from the children, from the teenagers especially, isn't it? Why are we doing what we're doing? Why? Americans, every third word, why? So, that is the atheistic temperament of today's world. So, and that is the distinction between the Kanishta Adhikari and the Madhyama Adhikari. The Madhyama Adhikari can deal with these things. Kanishta Adhikari just starts to tremble. So, it's very important. Is that okay? Yes.
For us, people over here, we are around second initiate, 3-4 years into initiation, something like that. Being into Krishna consciousness, So when you mention austerity, when you say humility, then I think Prabhupada defines it as readiness to get change. The question is, there's one change that happens before you get into Krishna consciousness, get initiated. After it, kind of routine might start. I mean, 44 principle, 16.
This is the wrong concept altogether. The change is a perpetual thing every second. 2 seconds ago, you changed. Now you have to change again. In 1 second more, you'll have to change. Because the life is like that. We're being presented with so many challenges at every moment, isn't it? How are we responding to those? Either you can do it in such a way that we go up, or you can do it in such a way that it takes us down. Surrender is not something that happens once. Diksha is something that happens once, and that is surrender also. But it's called initiation. Why is it called initiation? Initiation is a totally different concept than Diksha, isn't it? If you look at the Sanskrit definition, Diksha means to give you transcendental knowledge. But Prabhupada doesn't translate it like that. He does explain it like that, but he doesn't translate that. He translates Diksha means initiation. Why initiation? What does it mean to initiate something? Begin. It's only the beginning. People think, I've worked so hard, now I'm initiated, I'm done. I can just, weekend warrior, and, I come to the Sunday feast, and that's all I have to do now, and I'm good. And I'm going back to Godhead because I'm a Kanishta Adhikari. And all these other people are in Maya. This is how bewildered we are. But, real surrender, real humility means, every day you wake up and consider that, how many more black things are there in my heart? Prabhupada said, you Westerners in particular. I would say it expands now because it's 2024. Pretty much everybody in the world. There's no real distinction that I can see anymore. But Prabhupada said it's like, trying to purify you, he said, is like trying to clean charcoal. No matter how hard you scrub charcoal, it's pretty discouraging, isn't it? But there's a diamond in there. That's how charcoal is. So yeah, I mean, another time just to give you this, this understanding from a different perspective. Devotee asked Prabhupada, how do we know when Krishna is pleased with our service? What did Prabhupada answer? Anybody know? When he tells you. When he tells you he's pleased. Yeah. So when Krishna tells you that he's pleased with your service, then you can think that, now I surrendered. Until then, just keep at it. Because you may not see your faults, but I can guarantee other people see your faults. Right? Especially in ISKCON. Oh my God. And that's why we have an association, because we actually need somebody. Hey, Prabhu, what's going on? Sometimes, we all need that guidance also. And it's never easy to take. There's no polite way to throw a hand grenade. But somebody, if somebody's in Maya, they need to hear about it. And so Tamal Krishna Goswami was the kind of person that he wouldn't hesitate to tell you. He was just straight like that. And it wasn't even ill-motivated. He was actually thinking of your welfare. He knew that we have a mission to spread. And it's not going to happen if we're all complacent and happy and just on the weekends only. We have to get serious. And he would tell us how to get serious. And he would show us the example of what it means to be serious. Look at what he did in Mayapur, for example. Raise your hand if you've gone to Mayapur. Yes, just see. All of you are indebted. You know how that place got built? Because Tamal Krishna Goswami went and bought that land. And it was so difficult, and it was even dangerous. And he didn't stop there. This is the thing. No, okay, the land is purchased. Yasya Prasadat Bhagavat. I'm done. No. He made sure that the temple was built. And then the temple is built. He made sure that everything is going on. And he just perpetual surrender, perpetual attention to one's duty. He brought those bricks. He bought all the cement from Kolkata. He did not leave the truck. He sat in the truck along with the bricks. And when the bricks were delivered and unloaded, he counted every one of them. And then he lied on top of those bricks at night to take rest, to make sure that they weren't stolen. This is duty. Let me tell you another story. I don't know how long we can go now, but Narayan Maharaj, everybody knows, Gaudiya Math, Narayan Maharaj. So he became attracted to ISKCON sometime in the late 1980s. And the reason that Narayan Maharaj was initially, he never took anything seriously about ISKCON, like most of the Gaudiya Math. Even Prabhupada was always inviting them, please come and help. They never really were very interested. But in the late 1980s, there was a court case in which Tamal Krishna Goswami took it upon himself as Prabhupada's son that, I'm going to have to, who's going to do this? If I don't do this, it's not going to get done. So he started fighting in that court case, and as a matter of the proceedings, he went to the Gaudiya Math and asked for the help of Narayan Maharaj because he was witness to so many things in ISKCON in the early years before Prabhupada even came to the West. So they were working together every day, and they were going to the courthouse in Mumbai. Everybody from Mumbai knows. And so Narayan Maharaj, he was noticing every day before they're going downtown, he sees Tamal Krishna Goswami praying very ardently in front of Sitaram in Mumbai, Juhu. And, he's thinking in his mind, of all people to do this in front of, Narayan Maharaj is not one to accept that so easily. So, he's not saying anything, but every day he's just wondering, well, And so, day after day he sees this. And finally he couldn't stand it anymore. He went to Tamal Krishna Maharaj and said, Maharaj, in our line, we're worshiping Radha Krishna. And, I'm seeing that every day before we go to court, you're praying to Sita and Ram. So, tell me what's going on in your mind. And Tamal Krishna Goswami turned around and looked at Narayan Maharaj straight in the eye. Whenever Tamal Krishna Goswami looked you in the eye, he could burn a hole through you. And when he spoke something also, it was like, Mere paas nikas gaya, Satguru Maryatir. Mirabai ne kaha. So, he turned around and he looked at Narayan Maharaj and he said, I'm not praying to Sita Ram. I'm praying to the weapons of Ram and Lakshman. And Maharaj was struck, like I said, like just shot through the heart by those words. He realized instantly that these people are deep. This one really knows the philosophy. He's really internalized this, and he's humbled me. And that's when he really started to associate with ISKCON devotees, because that's when he recognized these people have adhikar. Of course, he had his own, whatever, the rest is history, but that was Tamal Krishna Goswami's character. He was the living, walking, breathing embodiment of the last word of Shvetashvatara Upanishad, which is, I've mentioned it here before, Yasya deve parabhaktir yatha deve tatha gurau. Who knows the verse? Please recite. Loud. Yeah. What does it mean? Somebody who has equal faith in Bhagavan and Guru, that person will automatically realize the import of all the Shastras. This was him. He just had that spirit, but innately he had it. He brought it with him, it seems. Like he was a Nitya Siddha also, come to help Prabhupada. It would seem that way. I don't know how else a person gets that realization, because it's not so easy. It is the last thing that a puffed up person wants to imbibe. This Guru Nishtha. But somehow or other he had it. And that's where the potency came from. Okay. Anything else? Okay. Famous. It's so famous. Yeah, this is classic. This is classic TKG. This is why I say you could not stand in opposition to him. It was just not possible. You would just be decimated. Because the bottom line is that those people had no philosophy. They had no idea what they were doing or saying. Just pure, just wishy-washy, vague sentiment only. That's nothing. Falgu. And, in Tamal Krishna Goswami's presence, anybody of that caliber would just be completely obliterated. They would be left with no shelter at all. And that's why they just had to realize that, okay, I'm totally, totally defeated. And I have to surrender now. But he was so nice at the same time that, once you did so then everything was fine. He was so, just empowered to spread Krishna consciousness, and that's why Prabhupada loved him so much. Not that he's the only one, of course. Many disciples, but my experience was with him. Everything of my Krishna consciousness basically came from him, because I didn't get Prabhupada's association. Just a few seconds I had Prabhupada's association. Once or twice, 2-3 times only. But all the the real practical stuff that came through Tamal Krishna Goswami, ultimately from Prabhupada, because he didn't do anything that Prabhupada didn't tell him. But he was transparent. That's what it means to be transparent. And we all have to become transparent. Why all of us? Why all of us? Mahaprabhu, he's given the order, no? Jare daikhe tare kaha, or what is the other one? Bharata bhumite hailo manusya janma jar janma sartha kori kora parupakar. If I say, baja jakar, am kharidla, right? What does it mean? You have to be in the bazaar. You cannot buy the unless you're in the bazaar already, right? So similarly, janma sartha kori kora parupakar. You cannot do anything for anybody unless you've helped yourself. That's therefore humility. Everything comes down to that. Yes. Mm-hmm. Asat Sanga Tyaga e Vaishnavachar. This is Chaitanya Mahaprabhu's answer when somebody asked him, how do we become devotees? Who is a devotee? He give up the mundane association. Because Sangat Sanjayate Kama. That's where it comes from, right? It comes from the bad association that we embrace. So if we don't, Bansna ho to bansuri na ho. Right? So this is a simple thing. We just monitor your association. Where am I not following the order of the spiritual master? Look, we're singing every day, or we should be. Maybe we aren't singing every day. Maybe that's what the problem is. But we should be singing every day. Guru Mukha Padma Bhaku Chitete Kori Aika Arana Kori Homani Aja. But we're not opening the books every day, are we? See? So that and a sadhu association of a sadhu means he puts a spotlight on that. And in public. That's more mercy. Tamal Krishna Goswami was like this. Once you're spotlighted by this kind of mercy, you got to do something about it. You can't, So this is the thing. Asat Sanga Tyaga. That's the first step. Because almost everything, look, Sadhu Sanga Sarva Siddhi Hai. Sarva Shastra Kai. Lava Matra Sadhu Sanga Sarva Siddhi Hai. So everything is coming from Sadhu Sanga. Prabhupada said it, 90% of our advancement comes from Sat Sanga. But the converse is also true. 90% of our Maya is coming from the Asat Sanga. So you got to cut out the Asat Sanga, and you've got to scrutinize your life, introspect. Where is the hole? Where is it, It's like if you have an air mattress. I was in Los Angeles. Somebody gave me an air mattress. And, you fill it up, and the first night it's okay. The second night is like, there's a leak somewhere, right? So that you got to find where is the leak. That's all. Otherwise, Krishna tells Uddhava in 11th canto that it's like water runs out of an unbaked clay pot. If you get a clay pot It's not been fired yet, and you fill it with water. What's going to happen? The thing will melt, and your water will be all gone. That's what happens with our so-called Krishna consciousness when we're attached to mundane association and maintain that mundane association. Now, mundane association, sangha, samyak gacchati, iti sangaha. It all goes together. What is this? The antithesis of Bhadram Karne Bhishraniyamadeva, as the Upanishads tell us. You have to hear only auspicious things, you have to see only auspicious things, touch only auspicious things, smell, taste, and do auspicious things. This is the ideal. But the reality of most of our lives is that, we're doing all inauspicious things, and then we wonder, why am I not becoming Krishna conscious? How do I get through an artha-nivritti? Well, what's the way to realize I'm not my body? Cut off the asat sangha. That's the first thing that Chaitanya Mahaprabhu has said. I don't mean cut it off and live in a vacuum state, but replace it with satsanga. What is that? Mahat sevam dwaram ahuri mukte. That, the path to liberation is opened when we embrace devotional association. And the antithesis, what is it? Tamodwaram, yoshitam sangi sangam, the comfortable path. Yeah, everything's sense gratification, and especially sex life. This is a major problem for most people. So, sadhu sangha, that's always the answer to the question, how to make advancement. Because it's in the sadhu sangha, that's when we become humbled. One of my godbrothers, he was one of those Prabhus who came out of Tamal Krishna Goswami's room trembling. So he said, just being him for half an hour is like sitting in a room and reading Bhagavatam for 3 months straight. It's true. The sadhu, Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur said, the sadhu is so expert because he gains your trust by his ideal character, by his wisdom, by his, joy. The sadhu attracts us. And then, we listen to him and he speaks strong words. And, he elicits, what is that response in Upadesha Amritam? 6 exchanges? Parigrinhati gohyam akhyati prachati. So we reveal things to the sadhu on account of his character, the trustworthy character, that we will not reveal to other people. And so then he takes advantage of us. In the material world, if you reveal your Marma Kibat to somebody else who is a materialist, what's he going to do? He's going to rip you off for sure. It's like the People's Republic of China. I mean, the Chinese Communist Party. Their philosophy is like this. They understand your opponent's weakness, take advantage of that. That's what they do always. So, this is what happens in the material world, but in the spiritual world, it's ironic because he seems to do the same thing. You've revealed your mind to him, and then he just blasts you with very sharp words, just to cut the illusion and just to humiliate us. And we're asking for that. Gurudev kripa bindu diya koro e dase trinape ka atihin. What are you asking for except please humiliate me? That's what it means. And then he does that, but that's mercy, because then we're freed from that, bondage. It's like a shackle, and then we can move on to the light, unencumbered. Every one of us has a ball and chain, and we're dragging it around for so many lifetimes, isn't it? What's that ball and chain? Material desires, material association. So the sadhu is the one who can help us to cut that. It's a little bit like Shani. Anybody who's been through Shani, Saturn, very well. I mean, I went through 26 years of Saturn. First Mahadasha, then Saraswati, right back to back. Oh my God. So, it's not pleasant at any point, but it's very ennobling. It's very elevating. And, it benefits us tremendously. It's a question of prayas versus shreyas. Everybody understands these two terms, prayas and shreyas. Any Indian should know. We know Shreya Ghoshal, at least we know that. Is that helpful? Pretty strong answer. Okay, so I don't know. Time is getting late now. Okay, yeah, host is telling. Thank you all very much. All glories to Srila Prabhupada. Hare Krishna.
So we are very thankful to His Grace Mukunda Prabhu and Mataji for coming here and giving us association. So let's loudly chant 3 times Hari Bol. Hari Bol! Hari Bol! Hari Bol! So as you know, there is a full week